Welcome to Facts Radio, your journey through history begins here. In this episode, we explore Spartacus, the Thracian gladiator, the man who forged an army of the enslaved and dared to stare down the Roman Republic. We will walk the misty hills of Thrace, feel the dust of Capua's arena, and hear the rattle of legionary armor on narrow Italian roads. We will meet a warrior who began as no one and became legend, who traded a shepherd's crook for a gladius and changed the empire's view of its own invincibility. Prepare for a story of fire, blood, and unbreakable will. Chapter 1: The Mountains That Watched Him Run. Picture the Rhodope Range at dawn, salmon-pink light spilling over pine-dark ridges. A boy herds goats along knife-thin paths, his bare feet knowing every stone. That boy is Spartacus, born under a sky wide enough to make a human feel both free and terribly small. Thracian tribes value one virtue above silver, the ability to stand alone against the world. By the time he is 15, he can loose an arrow through falling snow and hit a pine cone before it lands. He sings the old songs, low, guttural chants that speak of riders who will never kneel. But songs cannot stop Roman scouts forever. One winter dusk, iron-shod columns trudge into the valley, standards bristling like a steel forest. Imagine the tension, the boy's breath clouding as he crouches behind a boulder, counting red shields. Legionaries barter glass beads for grain, but their eyes price everything: fields, livestock, people. They leave with 10 Thracian hostages, insurance against tribal raids. Spartacus is not among them, yet fate is only postponing its invoice. Years pass, the boy becomes a man with shoulders cut by wind and spear shafts. He enlists as an auxiliary, Rome's cheap solution for frontier warfare. In the barracks he learns Latin curses, tastes wine soured with sea salt, and discovers that empire feeds on the very warriors it conquers. Marching under a Roman eagle, he fights the Getae beside men who once called him kin. Each victory feels like betrayal, every order muttered in Latin tastes of iron. One night, under a black, star-drunk sky, he slips past sleeping sentries and vanishes into the forests that raised him. Desertion, Rome will say. Homecoming, his heart will answer. Retribution is swift. Roman riders burn his village, chain the survivors. Spartacus, now a renegade, fights until the earth drinks his strength. He wakes with wrists kissed by cold bronze, the clank of fetters telling him the Republic has reclaimed its investment. Imagine the sting, the same hands that once launched arrows at wolves now scrape the deck of a slave galley. Yet even belly down in salt water, he lifts his gaze to the horizon, measuring distances the way a future general measures supply lines. The galley docks at Capua, a city that perfumes its air with olive oil and blood. In the market square, auctioneers brag about bodies the way farmers brag about bulls. Spartacus stands on the block, muscles laced with scars, eyes the color of storm cloud. A Lannister, a gladiator trainer, pays the price of a small vineyard for him. The Thracian is now property, but the crowd that will cheer his death does not yet know it is feeding a furnace that will soon melt Rome itself. Chapter 2: Dust and Arena Dreams. Capua's Luda squats behind limestone walls taller than temple columns. Inside, men file their hopes into iron points. Spartacus learns the gladius, a sword short enough to stab from clinch distance. He practices the Murmillo style, fish crest helmet, rectangular shield, while memories of Thracian cavalry haunt his dreams. Every sunrise, sand is raked smooth to hide yesterday's blood; every sunset, it clumps again. The gladiator school is a shrine to repetition: drill, eat, bleed, repeat. Yet within repetition, revolution germinates. In the barracks, whispers travel like rats, stories of men who refused to salute the editor, of a Gaul who killed 10 opponents then turned his sword on the crowd. Spartacus listens, filing each tale beside sword techniques. He meets Crixus, a Celt with laughter like breaking ice, and Enamors, a Numidian who prays to dunes he will never see again. Between them passes a look older than language: we are more than our chains. Imagine the tension on the day of his first public bout. Brass horns blare, marble seats blaze with white togas. Spartacus enters the arena, sand soft as grave soil. Across from him stands a seasoned secutor, helmet shaped like a dogfish. The crowd smells blood already, bookmakers take wagers on how many heartbeats the Thracian will last. But Spartacus fights like a man remembering mountains, each dodge a gust of wind, each strike a falling rock. When the secutor drops, the editor turns thumbs up, sparing life. Mercy is cheaper than funeral expenses. Spartacus exits to polite applause, but inside his chest a drum beats, I am still alive, and while I live, Rome is not safe. Victories accumulate, so does resentment. At night he studies the guards, how many carry torches, which ones drink wine, where keys dangle. He learns that the kitchen receives fish on Wednesdays, that the gate hinges squeak for oil, that fear makes overseers predictable. Meanwhile, the crowd begins to chant his name, mispronouncing the consonants yet feeling the myth. Each cheer is a coin dropping into a rebellion's purse. The pivotal spark arrives in the shape of a woman, Varinia, a slave from the Germanic forests, eyes reflecting campfire. She is assigned to carry water to the gladiators. When she offers Spartacus a drink, her hand trembles not from fear but from shared rage. Their fingers brush, an oath passes skin to skin. Around them, guards laugh at the notion that love can bloom among the doomed. History will remember that laughter as the sound of a republic dozing at the wheel. Chapter 3, The Night Iron Broke. 73 BC. The Ludus kitchen steams with goat stew and mutiny. Spartacus, Crixus, and Enamors crouch behind flour sacks, knives hidden in straw. The plan is absurdly simple: you kill the guards, take the keys, arm the barracks, run before moonset. It's hard to believe, but the fate of an empire will tilt on whether a Thracian can persuade 24 terrified men to act as one. At the stroke when guards change shifts, Spartacus slashes the first throat so quietly the man's death rattle sounds like a snore. Keys pass hand to hand like hot coals. Imagine the tension, torchlight flickers over helmet crests while shadows spill across the sand. Doors swing open, chained men blink as if daylight has come early. They seize cleavers, spits, even a bronze strigil, anything that can kiss flesh. Within minutes, the ludus becomes a forge. Clangs echo, smoke coils. Some guards flee, others stand ground and pay with intestines spilled like purple ribbons. Spartacus does not waste time on vengeance, he herds his new army toward the armory. They don segmented armor meant for exhibition, grip shields still smelling of Polish. By the time city militia arrive, the gladiators have vanished into the night, leaving only torches stabbed upright in the sand like exclamation marks. Dawn finds them on Mount Vesuvius, slopes lush with rebel uncertainty. 200 men chew stolen bread, staring at the distant ribbon of Via Appia where Roman legions will march. Spartacus climbs a lava boulder, sun rising behind him like a general's cloak. He speaks in Thracian first, then Latin, then the universal tongue of clenched fists, we are not fleeing, we are hunting. The words spread, wildfire in dry grass. Yet every fire needs fuel. Scouts report nearby farms fat with cattle and grain. Raiding parties form, they return with ham, cheese, and wide-eyed shepherd boys who swear allegiance after one shared meal. Within weeks, the band swells to thousands, runaway slaves, discharged soldiers, even debt-ridden freemen hearing rumor of a world turned upside down. Vesuvius, once a symbol of Rome's might, becomes the anvil on which new hammers are forged. Chapter 4, Eagle Sent South. News reaches Rome like wine spilled on marble, fast, staining, impossible to ignore. The Senate chuckles at first, slaves playing legion? Let Capua handle its own dirt. But when Praetor Gaius Claudius Glaber cobbles together 3,000 militia, the chuckle dies. Glaber marches south confident that siege tactics invented by Marius will starve the rebels on their crater rim. Imagine the Roman camp, scarlet standards, bronze cookpots, officers quoting Vegetius while servants Polish greaves. Glaber's strategy is textbook, seal the only trail, wait for hunger to gnaw courage. He does not know that Spartacus has studied Roman tactics from the inside, the way a butcher learns joints. Under moonlight, the Thracian orders vines woven into ropes. Rebels descend Vesuvius' sheer cliff silently, bare feet gripping stone warm from daytime sun. At first light, horns blast, not from below, but from behind. Glaber turns to see his own pickets running, eyes white with disbelief. Slaves pour into the camp, glinting looted steel. It's hard to believe, but cook fires become battlefields, ladles clang against helmets. The Roman line buckles, folds, routs. Survivors scatter across Campania spreading tales of a slave who fights like a demon and thinks like a consul. Victory gifts the rebels more than weapons, it gifts them time and reputation. Whole villages open gates, offering food in exchange for protection from Rome's reprisals. Spartacus refuses to let his followers burn estates, instead he proclaims that anyone who joins shares in the spoils equally. The Senate scoffs at such egalitarian nonsense, yet each night more torches snake toward Vesuvius, a galaxy of grievance coalescing into an iron comet. Back in Rome, elder senators recall Hannibal's elephants and feel the same chill. They promote Praetor Publius Varinius, granting him legions of real legionaries, not weekend militia. Varinius marches south certain that discipline will trump desperation. But winter is coming, and Italian storms care nothing for eagles or broken chains. In the flicker of campfires, Spartacus studies maps drawn from memory, tracing roads his feet once marched as a conscript. He knows the next clash will not be a skirmish, it will be the Republic's attempt to strangle dawn itself. And so, on the cusp of storm clouds, two armies close like jaws. One fights for order forged in centuries, the other for freedom freshly hammered from stolen iron. Somewhere between them rides the ghost of a Thracian shepherd boy who once sang to goats beneath an endless sky. His song, once carried by wind, now marches to the beat of 10,000 determined hearts. Chapter 5, Winter of Wolves. Snowflakes the size of sesterces swirl across the Apennines as the rebel column snakes downward from Vesuvius' frosted crown. 3 months have passed since Glaber's humiliation, now 20,000 souls, shepherds, field hands, even the citybred, follow a Thracian who promises them tomorrow. Spartacus rides a captured charger, cloak stitched from theatre curtains, yet his eyes remain the same storm grey that once watched goats on a Thracian ridge. He knows armies march on more than courage, they march on grain ground by unwilling millstones of time. At the valley of the Volturnus, scouts report Varinius legions pitching winter camps in orderly squares, red flags snapping like fresh blood. Spartacus orders fires lit where Romans can see them, the orange glow a taunt across white fields. While enemies sharpen spather edges, rebels weave reed sandals, melt snow for soup, teach Greek lullabies to Celtic infants born in flight. Imagine the hush, 1,000 campfires sparkle below 1,000 stars, and every spark is a prayer that dawn will find them still breathing. Varinius waits for freeze to bite rebellion first, but Spartacus strikes before iron filings of discipline can settle. Under cloud moon he sends Crixus with 5,000 Gauls through a chest-high drift, they crawl so quietly the sentries hear only wind scraping shield bosses. Horns blare too late, rebels pour into tents, slashing guy ropes so canvas collapses like coffin lids. Romans stumble half-armed into snow, bare knees redden faster than cloaks. By sunrise Varinius limps southward, dignity buried beneath drift-stained pink. Victory buys little warmth. Frostbite gnaws toes faster than dogs gnaw bones, amphorae of sour wine freeze and burst. Spartacus orders the column westward toward warmer Samnite uplands, but mountains demand payment in lives. Stragglers drop, eyelashes silvered, mouths open as if to taste one last flake. Host villages bar doors until rebel foragers hold torches over thatched roofs, hunger teaches mercy to sing in a different key. Yet when the army descends into the Liris Valley, olive groves shimmer emerald, an impossible spring in December, and men weep at the sight of living leaves. Here Spartacus pauses to forge more than weapons, he forges law. Shares of loot recorded on wax tablets, punishments for rape or theft decided by councils where every tongue, Thracian, Celtic, African, finds translator. Imagine the crackle, a Gaul argues with a Syrian over a bronze mirror, both bow when the Thracian splits it in half, reflecting each man's startled eye. In that fractured gleam, the idea of we begins to outshine the memory of I. But Rome does not hibernate. The Senate appoints 2 more praetors, drafts fresh legions, empties jails of veterans whose scars outrank virtue. Messages arrive inked on human skin, italic farmland swears secret grain if rebels march south, pirates of Cilician coast promise passage to Sicily, land of slave revolts past, for a price in gold. Spartacus studies these scrolls by lamplight, jaw clenched like a vice around choices that will either liberate or drown every soul at his back. As winter solstice drapes the longest night, he addresses the host beneath a torch circle that turns snow into falling embers. "We are no longer fugitives," he declares, voice echoing off limestone. "We are the avalanche Rome never expected." The roar that answers could melt stone. It rolls down valley, reaches Varinius' battered pickets, and inside their bones the legionaries feel the first tremor of what history will call an earthquake in sandals. Chapter 6: Gold of the Aurunci. Spring exhales across Campania, turning meadows into tapestries of poppy and wild fennel. The rebel host, now near 40,000, moves like a city on legs, oxen dragging wagons piled with captured standards. Spartacus leads them toward the Aurunci mountains, where legends say Italic tribes once minted gold hidden from Samnite wars. He needs coin to pay Cilician pirates, coin to buy time, time being the rarest metal in any rebellion's coffers. Roman patrols hover like crows but dare not strike, memories of frozen defeat still frost their dreams. Instead they shadow, counting baggage carts, noting that women and children march among fighters, an abomination to traditional legions who keep camp followers outside ramparts. Spartacus uses this scorn. He stations archer-wives on flanks, teaches boys to sling stones at horse hocks. Imagine the surprise of a cavalry decurion when a shepherd's 12-year-old daughter shatters his mount's kneecap, the proud beast folding like broken furniture. Deep in oak hollows, rebels discover the hoard, not shining bricks but crumbling statuettes, funeral masks, a king's talk green with age. Gold is melted in clay furnaces, poured into mold trays shaped like gladius hilts. Each ingot bears a crude stamp, 2 hands breaking a chain. Blacksmiths who once forged plowshares now hammer coins that will sail across the Mediterranean, buying fleet and future. Yet wealth breeds fever. One night a Ligurian centurion turned rebel slips into the treasury tent, pockets 3 discs. Dawn brings drumhead justice. Spartacus orders the man staked for crows, a sentence carried out in silence. Freedom forged by thieves cracks faster than bronze, he says, gay sweeping ranks. Some mutter that Rome itself was built on stolen cattle and rape of Sabines, but the Thracians' word is glacier, slow, undeniable. Meanwhile envoys from pirates arrive, purple-sailed ships anchored off the mouth of the Garigliano. Their captain, a Greek named Heraclides, wears silk so fine it snags on his own rings. Over salt-roasted boar he bargains, 10,000 rebels ferried to Sicily in exchange for gold, wine, and future plunder rights. Spartacus hears the hum beneath words. Heraclides fears Roman fleets will block Mutina Straits once summer winds shift. A deal is struck, hands clasped, wine spattered to Neptune. Marching south, the column celebrates, Sicilian wheat fields dance in imagination, island slaves ready to rise, Carthaginian harbors open to rebel keels. Flutes trill, Gauls braid poppies into manes. But scouts gallop in with darker news. Consul Lucius Gellius and Praetor Cornelius Lentulus converge with 4 legions, perhaps 50,000, closing like pincers. Spartacus stares at parchment maps by firelight, watching ink roads coil like nooses. He gathers counsel beneath a cypress whose trunk is split by lightning, half alive, half charred, a tree that understands civil war. Vote is taken, turn back to fortify hills, or dash to the coast and trust Heraclides' sails. Crixus thumps spearbutt, eager to meet Romans head-on. Enemours cautions that open battle risks everything. Spartacus listens, then lifts a glowing brand. Let sparks whirl into night. We will split, he decides, Crixus with 15,000 to delay Gellius, main body racing to ships. It's a gamble worthy of a gladiator who once wagered life on sand, now wagering thousands on tide. Dawn sees twin columns parting, standards fluttering like torn birds. Women kiss husbands goodbye, not knowing which kiss is last. Children chase after departing sandals until restrained by grandparents whose eyes hold histories of every migration since Troy. Spartacus rides beside Crixus for the final mile, 2 friends sharing silence thicker than language. When they clasp forearms, the grip says, if the gods decree we never meet again, let the earth remember we stood here, free. Chapter 7, The Straits That Never Opened. Sea spray tastes of iron as Spartacus reaches the coast near Formii, but the horizon is empty of purple sails. Days stretch into torment, rebels camp among marram grass, eyes fixed on blank blue. Instead of ships, circling gulls deliver omens, a dolphin carcass, a driftwood plank scarred by ramhead spikes. Heraclides, it seems, weighed risk against profit and chose self-preservation. The gold stamped with broken chains now funds nothing but anxiety. Behind him, thunder rolls on land. Gellius has smashed Crixus' detachment at Mount Garganus. Word arrives carried by a rider whose horse collapses from foam-flecked exhaustion. The Gaul fell fighting, sword in each hand, knee-deep in Roman dead. Enemours too is missing, likely slain, name added to a ledger longer than any senator's speech. Spartacus listens, face stone, then turns toward the sea as if expecting the tide to return his friends. It does not. Consular armies regroup, confident the rebellion is headless. Scouts report legions marching south along Via Appia, shields overlapping like reptilian scales. Spartacus must choose, entrench on the beach and risk naval bombardment, or turn inland and fight through encirclement. He chooses motion, the only tutor gladiators trust. Under cover of night the rebel host slips away, leaving campfires burning, shadows dancing like warriors on cave walls. They strike northeast into Samnium, terrain of rocky defiles and shepherd trails Romans disdain. Hunger sharpens resolve, rebels gnaw acorn bread, share the last salted mule. Spartacus adopts Fabian tactics taught by Roman tutors: march, feint, vanish, reappear. Legions pursue, cursing mountains that favor sandals over Calligae. Imagine the frustration of Gellius when he enters a village at dawn to find bread still warm, cauldrons bubbling, but not a single rebel, only graffiti scratched on market wall: "We were here, we are free." Yet evasion costs time, and time bleeds men. Desertions rise, some flee carrying gold coins now too heavy for exhausted pockets. Spartacus institutes nightly roll calls, not with Latin numerals but names spoken aloud, each syllable a hand clasped across darkness. When a Numidian cavalry troop bolts, he rides after them alone, returns at dusk leading the deserters by rope, yet cuts them free after speech that reminds them chains are heavier than any rope. Most reenlist, those who leave are given bread, a coin, and curse of memory. In a high meadow he gathers survivors for funeral games in honor of Crixus. Captured Roman officers are forced to fight as gladiators while rebel crowds jeer, a reversal so bitter some Romans fall on their own swords rather than swing at applause. Spartacus watches without joy or vengeance, he learns, tastes like ash. When the last Roman drops, he orders bodies burned, ashes scattered so no monument records degradation. Mercy, he says, is the only revenge that outlives the avenger. But destiny allows little room for philosophy. Lentulus blocks the northern road, Gellius the southern, west lies sea, east Apennine snow. Spartacus camps on the banks of the Seal, under a full moon that turns river into molten tin. He releases all non-combatants, old, infirm, pregnant, offering choice, trust Roman promises or fade into hills. Many depart with tears, some remain, tying family fate to his like boats to a single pier. That night he writes, dictates to a Greek scribe, a letter to Senate he knows will never be read: "We ask not for pardon, for we have committed no crime but to breathe." Then he burns the scroll, words belong to free men, not to ashes. Dawn reveals makeshift rafts bobbing on the Seal, decoys stuffed with straw and helmets. While Romans concentrate on apparent river crossing, main rebel force climbs ridge paths toward Picenum, destination the Alps, gateway to Thrace, to home beyond home. As the column ascends, Spartacus rides rigard, looking back at Italy spread like a green cloak stitched with silver rivers. He whispers words carried away by wind: "If I never see you again, remember me not as conqueror but as the man who tried to walk away, and kept walking." Chapter 8, Mutiny at Mutina. Northern Italy greets them with fog thick enough to slice, vineyards leafless like skeletal hands. At Mutina, today's Modena, another army waits, the combined consular forces under Gellius and Lentulus, reinforced by fresh cohorts from Gaul. Rome has stitched its prestige into one net, the gladiator must now dance inside or be trampled. Fields outside the city are churned to muck by autumn rain, perfect for bogging down cavalry, bad news for rebels whose Numidian riders are their eyes. Spartacus proposes maneuver, swing west, cross the Po, tempt Romans into divided pursuit, then punch through alpine passes before snow seals fate. Council chambers are drafty barns, torches spit resin as voices rise. Many Gauls, led by a warrior named Castus, argue for straight assault on Rome itself, claiming morale alone can topple the Republic. Imagine the clash, idealism pounding against realism like waves against cliff. Vote splits along tribal lines, the host stands at civil war's cliff edge. Spartacus walks among dissenters, places his hand on Castus' chest, feels heartbeat of a man who would be free or die in spectacle. He offers compromise, first break Mutina's blockade, then vote again north versus south. It's politics learned in arena sand, give crowd blood now, keep them seated for final act. Scouts report Roman camps strung along Aemilian road, confident rebels will dash themselves on ramparts. Spartacus smiles the weary smile of a man who once defeated walls with vine ropes. Night before battle, he visits each campfire, speaking name, sharing bread, promising nothing but honesty. Tomorrow we fight for the right to choose our direction, he says, voice low enough that men lean closer, hearing not a commander but a brother. Women grind last grain, singing dirges turned lullabies, children fit slingstones into pouches, unaware they prepare for history's lecture. Dawn fog hides movement as rebels approach from west, wind carrying scent of wet horse and fear. Spartacus arrays infantry in oblique line, weakest wing forward, strong wing angled back, a tactic remembered from Roman drill yards, now mirrored against masters. When horns sound, mist churns like wool under combs. Romans charge, expecting shaky slaves, instead they meet locked shields, Pila snatched from their own previous defeat and hurled back with compound interest. Castus and his Gauls perform the spectacular, a headlong rush that smashes Roman left, banners disappearing into fog like ships into storm. But center under Spartacus bends, deliberately yielding ground, sucking legions into a pocket. At signal, hidden cavalry, what remains of Numidian scouts, ride from concealed ditch, strike Roman rear. Imagine the compression, legionaries packed so tight their swords cannot descend. By midday fog lifts to reveal field carpeted with red cloaks, plumes, life pooling in hoofprints. Roman commanders flee toward Mutina, gates slammed against them by citizens fearing slave reprisal. Rebel losses are heavy too, friends recognize corpses by broken teeth, by childhood tattoos. Yet victory tastes intoxicating. That night Alps seem closer, snowcaps glowing like marble under moon, promising passage to lands where Latin is only a bad dream. But celebration curdles when council reconvenes. Emboldened Gauls demand immediate march on Rome, claiming gods have spoken through slaughter. Spartacus counters with hard numbers, no siege engines, no supply lines, Republic still able to draft new boys before grape harvest. Tension crackles like green wood. In the end, democracy born in blood threatens to birth fratricide. To prevent split, Spartacus agrees to separate commands, he will lead Thracians and Easterners north, Castus the Gauls south along via Flaminia. They clasp wrists, swear to reunite after circling Rome like wolves testing stag. It's a promise both know the wind may scatter. Chapter 9, The Last Ridge. Alps rise like the planet's own rampart, snowfields blazing under summer sun sharp enough to blind. Spartacus leads 30,000 toward the pass of the Selassie, modern Little St. Bernard, each step a negotiation between earth and sky. Behind, Italy smolders with memories, ahead, Thrace sings in dreams, though some can no longer recall if its rivers flowed west or east, only that they flowed free. Roman pursuit has reorganized under Marcus Licinius Crassus, richest man in Rome, for whom victory is merely another asset to acquire. He offers private fortune to field 8 legions, decimation as policy, 1 in 10 soldiers beaten to death by comrades for cowardice. Imagine the psychology, men march harder knowing their own clubs might greet retreat. Crassus cuts inland, aims to intercept before heights, building trench and wall across entire peninsula, fortifications from sea to sea, 300 miles of dirt and spite. Rebels reach the foothills to find the pass guarded by Selassie tribes, iron miners who trade in ore and blood. Spartacus parleys, offers gold talks, promises safe passage and future alliance against Rome. Tribesmen stare at the foreigner whose eyes hold same winter as their own, then stand aside, some join, scenting profit. Hope inflates, beyond the ridge lies Gaul, scattered tribes hostile to Rome, then Danube, then home. But weather is no one's ally. Blizzard strikes without herald, wind knitting snow into blindfolds. Horses founder, men link arms to prevent wander off death. Spartacus walks among them, sharing cloak, lifting stragglers, becoming myth in real time. Night camps are scooped holes in snow, shared warmth of bodies the only fire. Frostbite turns toes black, amputations performed with gladius heated red, steam rising like prayers. Crassus' shadow looms below. Word arrives that Castor's Gauls were trapped in Lucania, crushed at Battle of the Silarius River, survivors crucified along Appian Way, 6,000 crosses, one every 40 paces, screamed seasoning southern wind. Spartacus hears the news in silence, then enters his tent and does not emerge till dawn, eyes raw. Thereafter he speaks softer, as if voice itself might crack like lake ice underweight. Still, the column climbs. On the final ridge, sky clears to reveal both horizons, north, green valleys stretching toward invisible Thrace, south, Italian plains scarred by Roman roads like lashes on pale skin. Spartacus stands ankle-deep in snow, cloak whipping, staring at each compass point as if bidding farewell to both past and future. He addresses the host, "We are on the roof of the world. From here, every road leads downward, some to life, some to legend. Yet descent is blocked. Crassus' lieutenant, Lucius Quinctius, has bribed Gallic tribes to seal northern valleys, while main army advances from rear. Supply lines stretched gossamer thin snap, hunger returns like an old master. Councils argue, force the pass, scatter into tribal clans, or turn and meet Crassus in one final wager. Spartacus listens to wind howl around peaks, sound like arena crowds merged into single throat. He chooses fight, because turning back is no longer strategy, it is identity. The army pivots south again, sledding down alpine meadows to the plain of the river Selarus. Behind them snow closes passes, ahead, Crassus' trench waits like a fresh-dug grave. In camp, Spartacus releases the last of the non-combatants, handing each a coin bearing the broken chain stamp. If you reach a market, he says, buy freedom for another soul. Then he burns remaining treasure, no gold shall return to Rome, no incentive to pursue survivors. Firelight dances across faces hardened by altitude and decision, men who have already crossed the highest ridge a human can, the one inside himself. Chapter 10, Where the Earth Stood Still. Spring 71 BC. The plain of Selarus, modern Seal, spreads fertile and flat, wheat already knee-high, breeze creating waves that mimic the sea Spartacus will never sail again. Crassus has fortified trench 20 feet wide, parapets manned by fresh cohorts who've heard stories of slave sword sorcery and march anyway. Between trench and river, space narrows to a killing floor where maneuvers mean less than will. Spartacus arrays his remaining force, perhaps 30,000, perhaps fewer, numbers blur when each heartbeat counts. He places strongest on right wing, himself at center, horse rearing like marble statuary come alive. Before lines he addresses enemies, voice carrying over no man's land, we stand for the right to walk away, and keep walking. Romans hear, some laugh, some shift uneasily, remembering crosses they erected now echoing back. Horns sound. Rebels advance at brisk walk, no shouting, only the thud of unified sandals learned on vineyard roads and alpine snow. First missiles cross sky, peeler, stones, even kitchen knives tied to sticks, iron rain that threshes wheat along with flesh. Spartacus breaks into run, shield high, gladius low, the same sprint that once carried him across arena sand, now across destiny. Lines crash, the impact ripples like thunder inside Earth's own ribcage. For hours battle balances on sword edge. Roman discipline holds trench advantage, but desperation lends rebels weight of falling mountains. Spartacus fights in the front, cloak lost, torso bare, scars glowing livid under sun. Twice he cuts through maniples to stand atop parapet, twice pushed back. Imagine the tableau, wheat field flattened into crimson mosaic, clouds mirrored in pools of blood so still they seem sky holes. Then Roman cavalry under Crassus himself outflanks river bend, striking rebel rear. Compression begins, 30,000 becoming 20, 10, 5. Spartacus rallies, voice hoarse yet clarion, to me. To me. Men cluster like iron filings to lodestone, forming moving fortress. Step by step they carve toward Crassus' standard, distance closing like final act of tragedy. Within javelin range, Spartacus points sword at rich man's crimson cloak. There! Chain breaker, he cries, and launches forward. But at that instant a javelin, whose arm, no one will record, finds his thigh, buckling him. He rises, fights kneeling, then standing again, a pillar of meat and will. Around him bodyguard drops one by one until he stands alone, ringed by shields like arena rail. The end arrives not with trumpet but with murmur, rebels seeing their leader swallowed by iron tide waver, break, scatter into wheat that hides no one. Crassus orders pursuit, most are hunted, cut down, or captured by sunset. Spartacus' body is never positively identified, rumors swirl, he fell inches from Crassus' standard, he was carried off by loyal Thracians, he vanished into myth like King Arthur to Avalon. What remains is silence on a field where wheat will grow taller, fed by unmarked bones. Aftermath is arithmetic, 6,000 prisoners crucified along Appian Way, crosses already seasoned by previous Gallic corpses. Roads into Rome become avenues of moaning scarecrows, a lesson carved in air. Yet even crucifixion cannot still every tongue, travelers report that sometimes at dusk a breeze sets crosses humming like rough-stringed lyres, a dirge no Latin grammar can parse. Closing summary. Imagine standing on that same Appian road today, cicadas droning where iron once rang, umbrella pines throwing lace shadows over asphalt laid atop bones. No plaques mark the exact spot where Spartacus fell, perhaps that is fitting, for he belonged less to geography than to aspiration. Travelers speed by in cars named for conquerors, yet somewhere between wheel hum, a heartbeat persists, the right to say no, to walk away, to keep walking. His rebellion lasted less than 3 years, shook Rome more than centuries of foreign war. Senators who laughed at slave sword found themselves drafting laws limiting cruelty, not from kindness but terror that the world might flip again. The gladius he wielded dissolved into rust, yet the idea he sharpened, human dignity, cut through epochs, finding new edges in abolition, in civil rights, in every quiet refusal to bow. We modern listeners, safe behind earbuds and routine, might wonder, would I have followed? Would I have climbed snow-blind ridges for a homeland remembered only in lullabies? Perhaps the true question is, what chains, invisible but snug, do I still wear? Spartacus reminds us that empires of debt, of prejudice, of fear likewise thirst for compliance, and likewise tremble when ordinary people stand together under a single, unbroken sky. History records no final epitaph, no tomb to adorn with flowers. Yet each time a crowd marches peacefully for justice, each time a hand reaches across barbed rhetoric to clasp another, the wind carries a whisper in Thracian, in Latin, in every tongue ever silenced, I am still alive, and while I live, cruelty is not safe. So let us remember not the blood alone, but the choice, his followers, and now ours, to measure life less by length of days than by breadth of courage. May we navigate our own Alps of despair, our own trenches of entrenched power, with the same stubborn hope that once turned arena sand into birthplace of freedom. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. If you made it this far, you're the reason we keep going. Please subscribe and help us continue sharing these stories with the world.